What's going on, all you beautiful and sexy people? This is ManufacturedOpinionn here, bringing you some more Nioh gameplay. And I see katanas on every damn revenant in the game. Barely any axes, and it got me wondering, why the hell is nobody using axes? I mean, granted, the game throws katanas at you like they're candy, like they just shoehorn the other weapons into the game later on. But it got me to wondering, why is nobody using axes? Because honestly, I use katanas as well, so I'm also a culprit. But I started messing around with axes a little bit, and it is a bit difficult to find a good build, but I think I got one that you guys will enjoy. So I'm just going to jump right into some of my stats and my guardian spirit and my armor and stuff like that. And then I'm quickly going to show you a couple of clips at the end of this video that show the power of this build. So we'll get through this quickly. I'm using the Kaido Armor. The reason for that is for that 5-piece and 6-piece bonus there at the bottom. Increased attack and defense with an axe, and increased strong attack damage. Don't even bother trying to get your stamina up high enough to get to B agility. It will not work. I'm currently sitting at C because this armor is so heavy. You can interchange this with the obsidian armor, but that's even heavier. And if you're going to be using an axe, it doesn't give the same benefits as this armor does. And there's an extra set to the set piece bonus on that armor. So that's the reason why I didn't want to go with it. The axe, probably the most important part of this build. If you look at that last stat line there, change to attack strength A. This is what makes this a one-shot build. It is absolutely, you'll deal with little tiny humans with just a press of square, which is less than you have to do with the katana. And you will one-shot bosses with giant health pools in one combo, and I'll show you that a little bit later on. That is the armor and the gear. Like I said, this is interchangeable with the obsidian armor if you really want to go that route, but I recommend using this because it looks badass as well. Magic and ninjutsu. Tiger running scroll, because you will be fat stomping all over the place. Not, a huge part of it, but it is there for convenience. Quick change scroll. You are tanky in this build, but with an axe, you do leave yourself open to getting hit with the large sweeping attacks that we will be using. I use this in and out because I can actually apply it quicker than an elixir with the ninjutsu mystic art. So sometimes I use this as a holding place for an elixir. The two most important Guardian Spirit Talisman, I recommend that for any build. The Atlas Bear, which we'll be using for this build, is probably one of the best Guardian Spirit Talisman summons out there. Knocks down any enemy right away. Recommend that, or at least enemy with legs on the ground is a better way to explain that. The Top Kekkai Talisman and the Carnage Talisman. The Top Kekkai Talisman is probably the most important because if any of you are familiar with axes, you will be spending a lot of your time in a low stamina state. So anything that can give you a faster recovery speed is most welcome. Now, in Carnage Talisman, that gives you a little bit of that extra oomph to get in those one-shot boss kills. Now, while we're on the subject of stamina, I want to go into my Guardian Spirit here. The Atlas Bear, two very important stat lines. 1, 2, 3, or second stat line, increase damage when you're in low stamina. So the way I look at this build is kind of like the opposite of the Red Tear Stone build or the Phoenix build, in that you're going to be doing more damage when you have low stamina rather than low health. And you will find yourself going into the red quite a bit. Because there is a mystic art that goes along with the axe that we'll go into a second that allows you to do more damage when you use an attack that puts you into a 0 stamina or a negative stamina state. So you're essentially lining up bosses so that your last hit on that boss puts you into 0 stamina, and that gets you an increased amount of damage. So plus, the damage you get from this Atlas Bear. So that last stat line becomes very important, because you will find yourself in the red quite a bit, and anything that can kick you out of that state faster is obviously welcome as well. But let us jump into the skills here. I recommend all passives for each weapon tree. Pretty much, I just put my point into everything. I'm not a big fan of low stances, and the way, I play this build and the way I think it should be played, especially if you're going to be using the Kaido Armor with that plus 21% strong attack damage, is in high stance. That's where you'll get the big sweeping combos that give you the one-shot potential, but leave you open to get your shit pushed in, which is why we have the top Kekkai Talismans, quick change scrolls if you want to use those, and the Carnage Talismans. I'd almost want to call it glass cannon, just because stuff hits so hard in the way of the strong that if you miss an attack and you're in negative stamina, although we have the recovery from the top Kekkai Talisman and the Atlas Bear, sometimes it doesn't work out and you get your shit pushed in. So it is what it is. It's a high risk, high reward build. But this is the mystic art that I was talking about. Massively boost the damage of an attack that reduce your stamina to 0 or below. So essentially what I've been doing, at least on bosses, the tiny enemies, they will, like I said, it's just a square combo and they're dead. Some of maybe the yōkais, like a square triangle, and that's also in high stance. That's also the combo that we're going to be using on the bosses. So if you're fully buffed up on a boss, Carnage Talisman, Kekkai Talisman, and maybe, no, those are really the two biggest ones. You have huge one-shot potential. Couple that with this, if you set up a boss just right so that your last hit puts you into 0 stamina, woo! Oh, it's a beautiful sight to see. What else do I have here? Capacity is going to be huge. You want as many talismans as possible. I have some passives here just for running speed and stuff like that to make it a little bit less clunky when I'm just running through a level with my giant armor on. One thing that I did want to mention is that you'll see here is that the bottom half of my body is using suboptimal armor. If you're going to be using this build, obviously have everything to +1 as much as you can. And actually, one of the clips with Tachi that I'm going to show you here in a second, I'm using a purple Mononobe Axe, and you still do quite a bit of damage. Once I got this thing, I was like, Jesus, imagine this thing at +10, you would just rip everybody's face off. But yeah, that last purple stat line there is absolutely huge. You put out so much damage, it's ridiculous. But I can see why a lot of people don't use axes, because it's it is sort of a large learning curve, but once you figure out enemy patterns and stuff like that, and you know the axe's weakness, which is pretty much stamina, you can set up your attacks to find the enemy openings and essentially one-shot everything. But anyways, that's all my gear. I think I went through everything here. I'm just going to show you a couple clips now here. Just a fight against Tachi and then one-shotting on Ryoki, and like I think it was Region 3 or something like that. Massive health pool, just absolutely rip his face off. And just in case it wasn't self-explanatory, I realized that I forgot to show you my stats here. Obviously, you're going to want to pump as much as you can into strength, just enough spirit to get all the effects from Atlas Bear, 20 dexterity, 20 magic for the mystic arts, and just enough stamina to put you below 100. Like I mentioned earlier, it's going to be pretty difficult to get your stamina into the green with the heavy armor that we're going to be using. So I wanted to start off with a clip from the Tachi fight, because this is where the strongest learning curve is going to be. Fights like these, especially if you're switching over from the katana. Axe attacks are obviously slower, so you're going to have to find better attack windows. And obviously you're going to be heavier, especially with this build. If you're switching over from katana, you're obviously, you know, A or B agility. In this build, you're C agility. So not only do you have to reacclimate yourself to your attack timing, but you also have to relearn some of your timing on your dodges. And most importantly, you have to focus more on your ki pulses. It's extremely important with this build in fights similar to Tachi. In other fights, you're going to be one-shotting things. Ki pulses don't become as important, but like with the Raven Tengus and some of the later bosses, ki pulses are going to become more important. You do have some safeguards with this build with the Atlas Bear and the Axe Mystic Art, which may bail you out of some rough situations, but if you're in your katana build and you're just spamming square, which is like what I like to do a lot, and I don't necessarily worry about the stamina, especially with builds where your stamina regen is so high. If you're using the Red Demon armor, or you're using the Phoenix build, you don't have to worry too much about stamina. But this is more, it's kind of crazy to say, but especially when you're using an axe, but there is more finesse involved. And I'm just showing you here what a triangle attack can do in high stance to a yōkai. You either completely lop their head off, or you knock them down, opening yourself up for some final blow damage. It becomes pretty easier on some of the smaller enemies, but like I said, for some of the fights where you may be surrounded by multiple enemies, you're going to have to focus on your stamina more. And make sure that your buffs are up, which can become quite confusing. I guess that's not the right word, but you have to focus on a lot of things besides the fight. But it is worth it in the end, as you're about to see right here. I'm about to one-shot Onryoki, and I want you to pay close attention to what my stamina looks like coming up here in a second. I time it just right. Luckily I got hit, so I lost a little bit more stamina, but I timed it just perfectly so I'd be in a low stamina state, and then it's just game over from there. I get the increased damage from the Atlas Bear, the Mystic Art. Everything works out perfectly. It took a while to find that opening, but when I did, the axe makes it count. And it's death by one cut instead of 1,000 cuts. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have recommendations on the build, I'd love to see them below. But most importantly, I hope you are enjoying life, and I will see you in the next video. Stay sexy, everybody.